Welcome to Commercial Property Deep Dive by Eureka Business Group. In each episode, we break down the essentials of managing commercial properties with expert advice and actionable tips. Let's dive right in.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to be, talking all about industrial property management.
Ooh, exciting.
It is exciting. Maybe you're listening because you own some industrial property, or maybe you're thinking about investing in some.
Smart move if you are.
Why is that?
Well, industrial properties are often overlooked.
Yeah.
But they can be very lucrative.
Okay, so let's dive into that. Today we're looking at this article from EBG Commercial Management.
Great article.
Yeah, and it's called The Benefits of Professional Property Management for Industrial Spaces. So, it's kind of like if you think about it as like a well-oiled machine, that's what professional property management can do for your space.
That's a great analogy.
Keeping your tenants happy and your finances in check and even navigating, all the legal issues. So let's start with tenant relations. It's got to be different, than dealing with, say, apartment renters.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In the industrial world, your tenants aren't just looking for a place to live. They're running businesses. And their needs are so much more complex.
Yeah.
And the stakes are higher.
Higher stakes? In what way?
Well, imagine a major equipment malfunction in a manufacturing plant.
Oh, yeah?
That could bring the entire operation to a standstill, costing the tenant thousands of dollars per hour.
Thousands of dollars per hour?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. So how does a property manager help in a situation like that?
Well, they act as a mediator, coordinating repairs, keeping everyone informed, and minimizing that downtime. A good property manager can prevent a small problem from becoming a major crisis.
That's huge.
It really is.
So it's like having a 24/7 problem solver on call.
Okay, let's talk about the money side of things. This is where things can get really complicated.
Oh, you're telling me. Industrial properties have unique financial challenges.
Yeah.
We're talking about large sums of money, complex lease agreements, and potential liabilities that could keep you up at night. I bet. Our article says that professional property managers can actually reduce rent defaults by up to 15%. How do they pull that off?
Well, they have systems in place for efficient rent collection. They screen tenants thoroughly to minimize the risk of those defaults. And they're skilled at negotiating lease terms that benefit both the owner and the tenant.
So it's not just about collecting checks. It's about preventing problems before they even start.
Exactly. A good property manager is always looking ahead, anticipating those potential financial pitfalls, and taking steps to mitigate those risks.
Okay, so speaking of risks, let's talk about legal compliance. Industrial properties have a whole slew of regulations to deal with. Right?
You're not kidding. We're talking about zoning regulations, environmental standards, health and safety codes, and the list goes on and on.
What's an example of one of those regulations that could easily trip up, an owner who's managing their own property?
Okay, let's talk about hazardous waste disposal. A manufacturing plant might generate waste that's classified as hazardous under the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act. There are specific rules about how this waste must be handled, stored, and disposed of.
Wow, I had no idea it was that complicated. What happens if an owner doesn't follow those rules?
Well, they could face hefty fines, legal action, and even damage to their reputation. A professional property manager keeps up to date on all these regulations and ensures the property is always in compliance.
So they're like a legal expert on your team?
Precisely. They take care of those legal headaches so you don't have to.
Makes sense. Now let's move on to finding tenants. I imagine it's tough to find businesses that are the right fit for those specialized industrial spaces.
It can be. That's where a property manager's marketing savvy and industry connections come in handy.
Okay, so how do they go beyond just putting up a for lease sign?
Well, they use targeted marketing strategies to reach the right audience. They might attend industry trade shows, connect with business brokers, or use online platforms that cater to industrial tenants.
So it's about knowing where to look and how to present the property in the best light.
Right. They'll highlight the property's strengths, its location, amenities, infrastructure, and they'll know how to tailor their pitch to different types of businesses.
So they've found, some interested businesses. How do they make sure that they're choosing the right tenant? One that's going to be financially stable and a good fit for the property.
That's where tenant screening comes in. They verify financial information, check references, and even assess the business's operational needs to make sure that they're compatible with the property.
So it's like a matchmaking service.
You got it.
Okay, so now I got to ask about this. Tell me about optimizing space utilization. I feel like that's a no-brainer, but I'm sure there's more to it than meets the eye.
Oh, there's a lot more to it than just filling an empty warehouse. Property managers use strategies like lean manufacturing principles and warehouse management systems to maximize efficiency.
Lean manufacturing principles, warehouse management systems. What does that even mean?
Well, think about it. Every square foot of an industrial space costs money. A property manager who understands these principles can help tenants optimize their layouts, streamline their processes, and make the most of their space.
So they're like consultants helping tenants, run their businesses more efficiently.
Exactly. And this benefits the owner, too, because a well-organized, efficient tenant is a happy tenant who's more likely to renew their lease.
Makes sense. Okay, let's talk about sustainability. I wouldn't have thought this would be a big deal in industrial properties, but I'm hearing more and more about it.
It's becoming a major focus. Property managers are incorporating energy-efficient practices, waste reduction strategies, and even green building certifications into their management approaches.
So it's not just about saving the planet, it's about saving money, too.
Absolutely. Sustainable properties are more attractive to tenants, they often have lower operating costs, and they can command higher rents. It's a win-win-win.
Okay, can you give me a specific example of, how property managers are bringing sustainability to these industrial spaces?
Sure, they're upgrading to LED lighting, installing high-efficiency HVAC systems, and implementing recycling programs. They're even looking into things like solar panels and rainwater harvesting.
It sounds like they're turning these industrial spaces into like eco-friendly powerhouses.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the building itself, it's about promoting sustainable practices among tenants as well.
Yeah, I can see how that would attract a whole new type of tenant, businesses that are, committed to sustainability.
Exactly. It's becoming a major selling point.
Okay, so now let's dive into the world of technology. It seems like property management is getting a high-tech makeover these days.
It definitely is. Property management software is becoming increasingly sophisticated, offering a centralized platform for managing everything from rent collection and maintenance requests to communication and financial reporting.
So it's like having a digital command center for the entire property.
That's a great way to put it.
What about security systems? I bet those are getting pretty fancy too.
Oh, you bet. We're seeing advanced security systems with features like remote monitoring access control and even predictive analytics.
Predictive analytics. That sounds like something out of Minority Report.
It's pretty impressive. These systems can analyze data from various sources like security cameras and access logs to identify patterns and predict potential security risks.
So it's not just about reacting to incidents, it's about preventing them before they even happen.
Exactly. And this level of security can be a major selling point for tenants, especially those dealing with sensitive materials or high-value inventory.
Data analytics seems to be a big deal these days. How are property managers using data to make smarter decisions about their properties?
Well, they're tracking key performance indicators, identifying trends, and using that information to optimize everything from energy consumption to tenant satisfaction.
So it's not just about gut feelings anymore, it's about making data-driven decisions.
You got it. Data is king these days, and property managers are using it to gain a competitive edge.
This is all so fascinating. It sounds like the world of industrial property management is evolving at lightning speed. But with all this talk about technology and efficiency, let's not forget about the human element.
You're absolutely right. At the end of the day, property management is still about people. It's about building relationships, solving problems, and creating a sense of community.
And that's where the concept of peace of mind comes in, right?
Exactly. Professional property management can alleviate the stress and burden of managing an industrial property, allowing owners to focus on what they do best.
It's like having a trusted partner who's got your back and is taking care of all the details.
That's the essence of it.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We're picking up where we left off, exploring the world of industrial property management. I'm already amazed at how much goes on behind the scenes.
It's a fascinating field, and we've only just scratched the surface.
In the last part, we were talking about how technology is really changing the game. But before we go any further, I'd love to hear like a real-world example, of how a property manager brought that human touch that we discussed to an industrial property.
Okay, so picture this. You own a mid-sized warehouse, and you're leasing it to a logistics company. Things are going okay, but you're constantly getting calls about, minor repairs. The tenant is asking for rent adjustments, and frankly, it's eating into your time.
Yeah, I can relate to that. It's like a never-ending to-do list.
Exactly. So you hire a professional property manager. They come in and immediately establish a rapport with the tenant, making it clear that they're there to help both sides. They set up a system for handling maintenance requests efficiently, making sure repairs are done promptly, and to a high standard.
So no more late-night calls about leaky faucets.
Right. Because they have a deep understanding of the local market and lease agreements, they're able to negotiate a fair rent adjustment that keeps both you and the tenant happy.
So it sounds like they brought order to the chaos.
They did. And here's the best part. By taking care of all the day-to-day hassles, they freed you up to focus on your own business, you know. You're less stressed, more productive, and ultimately more profitable.
Wow, that's a powerful example of how a good property manager can make a real difference. It's not just about the property, it's about the people involved.
That's exactly right. And that brings us back to that well-oiled machine analogy we talked about earlier. Remember, a property manager keeps all the parts moving smoothly.
Okay, I'm following you. But how does optimizing space, which we talked about before, tie into that smooth operation?
Think of it this way. When a tenant's space is well organized and efficient, they're able to operate more smoothly. They can get more done in less time, they waste less energy, and they're generally happier.
So it's like those Tetris masters, fitting everything in perfectly, but like on an industrial scale.
You got it. And when a tenant is happy and productive, they're less likely to move out. That means less downtime for you, fewer costs associated with finding new tenants, and a more stable income stream.
Makes sense. A happy tenant equals a happy landlord.
Precisely. And there's another piece to this puzzle. Sustainability.
Oh, right. We touched on that earlier. I'm really interested in learning more about how that plays out in industrial properties.
Yeah, it's a huge factor. Property managers are now going above and beyond energy-efficient lighting. They're looking at the building envelope, considering insulation upgrades, and even exploring options like green roofs.
Green roofs on industrial buildings? I never would have thought of that.
It might seem surprising, but it makes sense. Green roofs can help regulate temperature, reduce stormwater runoff, and even improve air quality. Plus, they can be aesthetically pleasing, which can be a bonus in attracting tenants.
So it's not just about being green, it's about creating a better work environment for everyone.
Exactly. And a more sustainable property is often a more valuable property. Tenants are willing to pay a premium for spaces that are environmentally friendly, and investors are increasingly looking for sustainable assets.
It sounds like sustainability is a win-win for everyone involved.
It really is. And it's not just about the big-ticket items like green roofs. Property managers are also focusing on smaller but impactful changes.
Like what?
Things like installing low-flow plumbing fixtures, implementing recycling and composting programs, and even encouraging tenants to use public transportation or bike to work.
It sounds like they're creating like a whole culture of sustainability around the property.
They are. And this is especially important in the industrial sector, which historically hasn't had the best reputation when it comes to environmental practices.
Now, while we're talking about, making properties more appealing, I want to circle back to technology. We were discussing security systems before. Can you tell me more about how those systems are evolving?
Sure. We're seeing a shift from reactive security measures to more proactive ones. Instead of just recording incidents, these systems are now using AI and machine learning to anticipate and prevent potential problems.
Can you give me a concrete example?
Let's say a security camera at a loading dock detects an unusual pattern of activity after hours. The system might flag this as a potential security breach, automatically alert, security personnel or even local law enforcement.
That's incredible. It's like having a digital security guard that never sleeps.
Exactly. And these systems are getting smarter all the time. They can learn to recognize faces, track movements, and even detect suspicious behavior.
It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie. But on a serious note, this level of security must be a huge selling point for tenants.
It absolutely is, especially for businesses that handle sensitive data, high-value goods, or have strict safety regulations to comply with.
Now, beyond security, how else is data analytics being used in industrial property management?
It's being used to optimize energy consumption, track maintenance needs, and even predict tenant behavior.
Predict tenant behavior. Tell me more.
Property managers can now use data to identify tenants who are at risk of moving out, allowing them to intervene proactively and address any underlying issues.
That's fascinating. It's like they can see into the future and head off problems before they even happen.
In a way, yes. And this predictive capability is becoming increasingly valuable as competition for tenants heats up.
Okay. I'm blown away by all the ways technology is transforming property management. It's like a whole new world. But at the end of the day, it still comes down to people, right?
You're absolutely right. Technology can enhance and streamline processes, but it can't replace the human element.
So what are some of the key qualities that make a great industrial property manager?
They need to be excellent communicators, skilled negotiators, and problem solvers extraordinaire. They should also have a deep understanding of the industrial sector, including the unique needs of industrial tenants.
It sounds like they need to wear a lot of hats.
They do, and they need to be adaptable because the industrial landscape is constantly changing.
This has been such an insightful journey. We've covered so much ground, from tenant relations and space optimization to sustainability and technology.
We've seen how professional management brings a level of expertise and dedication that can make all the difference in the success of an industrial property.
And I think the key takeaway here is that it's not just about managing a property. It's about managing relationships, expectations, and outcomes. It's about creating a win-win situation for both property owners and tenants.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Well, we're just about out of time for part 2, but don't go anywhere. We'll be back with part 3, where we'll wrap up our deep dive into the world of industrial property management with some final thoughts and key takeaways.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been, unpacking the world of industrial property management, and I'm telling you, this is way more interesting than I ever thought it would be.
Right, it's like a hidden world with its own set of rules and challenges and rewards.
Exactly. And you know me, I love discovering those hidden gems of knowledge. In the last part, we talked about how technology is like revolutionizing this field. But I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier, which is, finding and keeping those awesome tenants. Absolutely. Tenant acquisition and retention are like the lifeblood of any successful industrial property. It's not just about filling an empty space. It's about finding the right fit.
Okay, so how does a property manager go about attracting those, ideal tenants?
Well, it starts with understanding the property's strengths and weaknesses. What are its unique selling points? Is it location? Is it access to transportation? Is it specialized infrastructure? Or something else?
So it's like you're saying they need to craft a marketing strategy, highlighting those key features.
Precisely. They'll use a mix of traditional and digital marketing, targeted outreach to specific industries, and even leverage their network of contacts.
It sounds like a multi-pronged approach. But how do they ensure they're not just getting any tenant? How do they make sure they're getting the right tenant, one that's reliable and financially stable?
That's where the screening process comes in. They'll verify financial information, check references, and even delve into the business's operational needs to ensure compatibility with the property.
It's like a matchmaking service, pairing the perfect business with the perfect space.
You got it. And once they've found the right match, the property manager's job shifts to building and nurturing that landlord-tenant relationship.
Because keeping a good tenant is just as important as finding one, right?
Absolutely. Happy tenants are more likely to renew their leases, which translates into a stable income stream for the property owner and reduces the costs associated with tenant turnover.
Makes sense. So what are some of the secrets to keeping those tenants happy and those leases rolling in?
It's all about clear communication, responsiveness, and going the extra mile. A good property manager is proactive, anticipating potential problems and addressing them before they escalate.
It's like having a concierge for your industrial space.
Exactly. They might organize tenant appreciation events, provide resources and information, or even just be a friendly face that tenants can rely on.
So it's not just about collecting rent checks. It's about building a sense of community.
You nailed it. And that sense of community can be a major factor in tenant retention.
Wow, this deep dive has been a real eye-opener. I'm starting to see industrial property management in a whole new light.
It's a dynamic field full of opportunities for those who are willing to learn and adapt.
So as we wrap up, I want to ask you, what's the one thing you hope our listener takes away from this deep dive?
I hope they understand that professional property management is an investment, not an expense. It's about maximizing the value of your industrial property, minimizing risk, and ultimately achieving peace of mind.
Beautifully said. And to our listener, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of industrial property management. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and maybe even a new appreciation for this often overlooked sector of real estate.
And remember, whether you're a seasoned investor or just starting out, there's always something new to learn.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.
Thanks for tuning in to Commercial Property Deep Dive by Eureka Business Group. We hope you enjoyed today's insights. Don't forget to subscribe for more expert tips and real stories to help you navigate the world of commercial property management. Until next time, keep thriving.